The land of Israel had fallen silent under the wrath of the heavens. For months, no rain had fallen. Rivers shrank to memory. Crops withered under the relentless sun, and the earth cracked into dry, unyielding lines. Animals wandered aimlessly in search of water. Mothers carried empty jars through dusty streets, their children following, eyes wide with fear. The people whispered of curses and judgment, but none dared speak the prophet's name aloud. Yet Elijah, the man of God, was not forgotten. His presence loomed in every shadow, his name on every lip, even as fear spread like wildfire. Soldiers hunted the prophets, and villages emptied as men and women fled to caves, mountains, and hidden places. Those who remained cowered behind doors, unsure who would be the next to vanish. The king searched for someone to blame, but every whisper led to the same name, Elijah. Alone, Elijah walked through the desolate countryside, the wind pulling at his cloak. He did not tremble. He did not hesitate, for he had been chosen for a task larger than fear or death. Yet even he was not immune to the weight of a nation in despair. He sought refuge by a quiet brook, the water trickling over stones as if mocking the drought. Ravens came carrying bread and meat, and he ate, for even in solitude, God provided. Days stretched into weeks. The people grew desperate. Their hope dried along with the rivers. And then, on Mount Carmel, a challenge was set. A massive crowd gathered: Israelites, priests, prophets of Baal, all eyes fixed upon a man who walked boldly toward the altars of the Lord. The prophets of Baal danced and shouted, cutting themselves to summon a god who would not answer. Noise filled the air, but it was hollow, empty, powerless. Elijah approached his own altar, a simple structure built of stones. With deliberate hands, he stacked the wood, pouring water over it again and again. The crowd held its breath. Even the wind seemed to pause, and then he prayed, a single, firm prayer. The heavens opened, fire fell, consuming the altar, the soaked wood, the offering. Smoke rose high, swirling in the sky as the people fell to their faces. Awe and fear mingled in every heart. The Lord, He is God. But victory brought danger. Jezebel, furious that her false prophets had been destroyed, sent a message of death. Tomorrow, she said, the prophet would be no more. Elijah, who had stood fearless before a nation, fled into the wilderness. The weight of all that he had witnessed, all that he had endured, pressed upon him. He sank under a tree, exhausted, desolate. He whispered to the Lord, questioning his strength, questioning his purpose. The world seemed silent. No voice, no fire, no wind. Just the desert, the rocks, and the weight of fear. And then a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. The mountains quaked, the wind howled, the fire flickered. Yet it was not in these great spectacles that God spoke. It was in the quiet, in the subtle, in the moment that demanded stillness and attention. Elijah lifted his head, listening, renewed, reassured, guided. Even the strongest can falter, even the bravest can feel fear. But faith is not measured by moments of strength alone. It is measured by rising after despair, by trusting when the world seems empty, by obeying when the path is dangerous. Elijah stood, a solitary figure against the horizon, prepared to continue the work that only he could accomplish. The mountains stretched into the distance. The desert air shimmered with heat and tension. From the silence of the wilderness, a new command would soon be given, anointing a man, a king who would fulfill justice. The story of Jezebel was not yet over, and neither was the story of God's power and His chosen. For the battles of faith are rarely loud, rarely celebrated, but they shape history in ways the world cannot ignore. Let the fire on Mount Carmel remind us truth does not need clamour. Justice does not require human might. Fear may shadow the heart, but courage is measured by obedience, not applause. Even when alone, even when hunted, even when despair presses upon us, God's purpose moves in whispers, in subtle guidance, in unseen ways that change the course of nations. And as Elijah prepared to rise once more, his eyes fixed on the horizon, the wind carried a message across the land. The Lord's plan unfolds in ways no man can predict. Strength is found not in the absence of fear, but in the faith to walk forward despite it. The lessons of that day echo through the ages. One voice can confront power, one act of faith can ignite change, and even in silence, God's truth is louder than any roar. From the dried riverbeds of Israel to the trembling crowds on Mount Carmel, from the solitude of the wilderness to the whispering voice of God, the story of Elijah reminds us that courage, faith, and obedience matter more than noise, more than fear, and more than the fleeting opinions of men. The fires have burned, the false prophets have fallen, yet the work continues. The future is uncertain, but Elijah, guided by the whisper, stands ready to fulfill his purpose. And history will remember that even when the heavens are silent, when the world is trembling, and when the people are afraid, one faithful servant can shift the course of nations forever. If you were inspired by Elijah's courage, faith, and determination, don't miss the next chapter in this biblical cinematic series. Subscribe to our channel now and hit the notification bell so you can follow the next epic story from the prophets to the kings and the battles that shaped history. Join our community of Bible story lovers and be the first to witness the untold stories of courage, faith, and divine purpose. Subscribe now, your journey through history is just beginning.